right, Jimmy, take us away. I think everyone's going to be interested in this. This was kind of a mind blower.
Okay, thank you so much, Robert. Hi, everyone. So I had to give a big haircut to my presentation from what I presented to Robert. There was a lot of material we went through, but so I tried to condense it, to fit about an hour. I have many slides. I'm going to blaze through this really, really quickly because it's recorded, and I can answer questions at the end. So I just want to compress as much material as possible. So today, I will be presenting the results of my research on the development on geometric harmonics physics. And I'm gonna, at the beginning, there's a bit some background on my story, which feeds into this, although it's totally not the focus on that today. I really want to focus on the information that will be communicated. So let me just get started. So I'm, again, very, very honored and pleased to be part of this wonderful group. You probably recognize my funny accent. I'm French Canadian. I'm from Quebec, Canada, so my first language is French. Been in the US living since 2002, currently in California for almost 20 years, not very far from Robert, actually. I was in Ventura, California, and I moved to near Sedona, Arizona in 2021. I'm a chemist. I do have a bachelor degree in chemistry, and I've, this was my early career was very technical, although I expanded more into management position afterward. So let me get started. So lifelong passion. I mean, one of my passions for all my life has been to build antenna systems. As you can see here, a picture of on the left is a picture of my antenna system currently in Arizona. And to the right is the one of the setup I had in California on top of my house. You can see this antenna is as large as my house.
Yeah, it is. That's awesome.
And I've been an amateur radio operator licensed since childhood. I've always been interested in this, in radio communication and technology. I love electronics. I'm very versed in electronics and things like that. So fast forward 2013, I became interested in a modality called moon-bound communication or Earth-Moon-Earth communication, which really consists in using the moon as a passive reflector in order to scatter or bounce, if you will, radio wave off the surface of the moon in order to establish a two-way communication here on Earth. So this obviously requires a very high-tech equipment, very sensitive equipment, very large antenna systems, literally as big as my house. And so in 2013, I started developing an antenna system to start, doing this modality. I was very interested. I was interested by the challenge of doing it. And so along the way, I ended up building a very unique antenna system that made the cover page of a European magazine, a German magazine at the time. And we can see it to the left, which I call triangular array rotatable polarity. It was a triangular shaped, configuration, which was yielding a very clean radiation pattern, just like a laser beam, right? So these antenna systems are directional, so they will radiate in a way that's very focused in a very specific direction. And so I had the opportunity to write a couple of scientific papers about it to describe this technology and so forth and so on. So that was 2016, 2017, and along the way I ended up realizing or making nearly over 800 two-way communications by moon bounce, again, by bouncing radio wave off the surface of the moon. I do have a website, www.kk6fah.com. This is my license call sign, and you will see a lot of technical details about it. And so, so how it all started, so how it disconnect to what we're going to talk about today. So in 2017, I became interested in a contact modality called CE5. I'm sure people have heard about it, or human-initiated contact. I was always, since childhood, very interested in the universe, astrophysics. At an early age, I was reading astrophysics books and things like that. And anyway, I was always felt connected to the universe, and I knew we were not alone. This was not even a question to me. And so I had watched some videos on the internet about human-initiated contact or CE5, and I said, okay, why not giving it a shot? I said, we'll try this. This is really cool, and I would like to try this. And since I had this very large radio station that I had developed for moon-bound communication, I thought to myself, why not creating a binary code message and broadcast a message out there in the universe with my coordinates, latitude, longitude, time and date, where I will be on a given night. So it was kind of giving, if you will, an appointment to whatever intelligence may be out there. And just for reference, my radio station is very powerful. I've built it up over the years. It's capable of deploying over 250,000 watts of radiated power on 432 megahertz and about 150,000 watts of radiated power on 144.1 megahertz. These frequencies are, part of the radio amateur band, believe it or not. So they just happen to be that way. And so, May 1st, 2017, I had set up, if you will, an appointment. At the time, I had the intention to set up a little group to do this human-initiated contact work. And so May 1st, I had decided to go screen a site to make contact in the future and do this work with a little group. And in the prior days, I had, again, encoded the binary code message, which essentially contained, coordinated time and date where I will be, that is on May 1st. So on that given night, I went to that location. Again, I was absolutely not expecting anything, really absolutely nothing. I was just doing this for fun, broadcasting this message. And when I got to the site, I had brought with me a little handheld radio that I had tuned to the same frequency that I had broadcasted the message. And the message was broadcasted on 144.1 megahertz at the time. That's what was my frequency of operation. And I got to the site, and maybe 15, 20 minutes after arrival, my radio started interacting and behaving in a way that I had never seen before. And I had been using this radio for many months or years, doing satellite communication and things like that. And here I was in the middle of nowhere, very deep in the valley in Rose Valley, California, so deep that there was no cell signal at that location, no human installation. I was really far remote. That was obviously I had chosen that site specifically for that work. At the time, I didn't make the connection that it was actually a reply to my transmission. But this is how my story started. And I can give an example here of interaction through the radio equipment, which also defies a lot of physics. I'm going to explain that in a second. And a lot of that story, part of this material, were part of a documentary that was released last year about my story. And again, I don't want to make that the focus of that discussion today, but it feeds into the mathematics and what we're going to get to in a second. So let me just show you here the video of the kind of interaction which defies a lot of physics. I'm going to play it here. And you will see these radios, these are 3 radios set to the same frequency. They are set to 144.1 megahertz, and yet the intelligence is able to control and interact with these radios independently, individually, which defies a lot of physics, because obviously, since these radios are set to the same frequency, they should all behave the same way if they will be triggered by some kind of electromagnetic radiation, a regular, electromagnetic radio wave, and it's not the case. So let me just play an example of message. That message you're going to see here, that message is, the beginning is an audio. What you're going to hear is actually how I was later on, I developed a technique to turn messages and text into an audio file, which I could then broadcast with my radio station. So this is what you're going to hear. We're going to see the message that was there that was addressed to the Galactic Federation and what kind of interaction happened after. So I'm going to play it. If you don't hear the sound, please let me know. I have activated the sound. If you don't hear it, let me know and I will make sure to look into it. But there should be sound with the interaction. So here we go. Can you hear the sound?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so it gives a bit an idea of you know what I experienced, and next to that, in addition to that, I set up again. I'm fast forwarding a lot here in my story because there's you know the entire story around this, but I'm trying to get to the information I want to present today. So another thing I did also was to set up cameras, different camera systems on my antenna system itself. Let me just bring this up here, and so I realized. Very shortly after that, you know, there were incredible sightings occurring during broadcast of these messages throughout the solar system. We can see here an example of transmissions towards the moon, December 21st, 2021. It was the solstice actually that day. And we see these objects very well defined shape. These are not bugs, obviously. They have a very defined structure and geometry to them. We see another example, broadcast towards Vega here on June 22nd, 22. We can see the tree here. This is the antenna system. And again, the cameras are on the back. We see a lot of, and since my first contact, I've had really in the hundreds of manifestations that I've been able to capture. And I'm going to share links to my YouTube channel and different sites. You'll be able to watch these videos for yourself. These I have the screen capture, but I actually have the videos of these interactions happening either, you know, somewhere during daytime, nighttime. The one we see on upper left is just this ship just happened to pass above my house and produce enormous flashes in my direction. So another example here of manifestation, very interesting manifestation. And then this is where the story started to go in a certain direction where there was shapes, very defined shape and information that seemed to be contained in these interactions and sightings. And so this one broadcaster was Arcturus. We see this kind of fleet of 4 ships that appeared right in front of the antenna system. And again, I have the videos of that, which just looks like really and strangely like the sign lambda. This one very special as well. I was actually that night on May 31st, 2022, broadcasting towards Arcturus. And I was testing because I was broadcasting what I call the golden ratio frequency. I was transmitting a tone of 161.8 hertz, you know, on an FM carrier of 144.1 megahertz. And I was actually doing this test to see if this would trigger any kind of reaction. And during the actual broadcast of that tone, which is very significant, I'll explain later why, this triangular craft just appeared right in front of the antenna array. And since, again, I will share these links, I have many broadcast sessions that I've recorded with different camera systems, not only one, but just to demonstrate that these are not artifacts from a camera glitch or anything. I have different camera technologies and they all essentially records the same thing. So it's not, you know, as I said, it's not some kind of artifact or anything. In this example here in live demonstration that's available on my YouTube channel, during the 22 minutes broadcast, there were like 14 sightings or manifestations in the field of view of the antenna. And we see, I mean, these craft typically will be just like, you know, stationary right there and keep producing flashes and interactions. And then the story really started to move, as I said, in a direction where these manifestations had very defined shape and clearly I felt contained information. And we see here, which I call the golden ratio triangular craft, which had appeared to me 3 times since 2021. The first one was on, we see upper left here, December 5th, 2021. And then December 25th, 2021 and February 5th, 2022. This craft had very defined shape. And I realized that I took a screenshot on my screen and did just using a ruler to look at the dimension of this craft and realized that this amazing structure was very unique, because if we take any side, if we look on the right side here, if we took any side of this triangle and ratio it against any other side of the triangle, we always get the golden ratio. For instance, the side C in yellow divided by side B, we get the golden ratio, 99.2% accuracy. Again, this was very manual measurements. There's some error to this. Side B over the side A, we get the golden ratio again, 99.8% accuracy. And side C over the side A, we get the golden ratio squared at 99.5%. I did the same exercise on a different screenshot. Same thing, you know, very good accuracy, and we're getting golden ratio and golden ratio squared across the board, which was absolutely fascinating to me because, you know, clearly there was information being communicated through these sightings. And then I decided, actually, since this craft had appeared to me 3 times, I created my own message with the understanding that they were communicating the golden ratio. And so in that message, I indicated essentially the golden ratio proportion to that graph, and I invited this intelligence to manifest again and see what will happen. So let me just play what happened during that broadcast. It's a couple of minutes video, and then I will keep moving forward here. Okay, so after that, you know, I had the feeling after this last manifestation, which was the last one, by the way. I have not seen this golden ratio triangular craft appearing again since that manifestation. I felt there was something more than the golden ratio, and so I use a little software, you know, just to do some triangle modeling, and I punched in the measurements, the relative measurements I had taken, and realized very clearly that by fine-tuning this model a little bit, this craft was communicating more than golden ratio. In fact, I understood that what was in this graph, if you look at the angle A to the left, we had an angle of corresponding to 4.32 degrees. And to the right, the angle communicated was 6.94. And, you know, we know that 6.94, put it on a calculator machine here, the 1 over x exactly matched harmonic 144. So this was really amazing to me because here I was broadcasting these messages on two frequencies, 144.1 megahertz and 432 megahertz, using the antenna system that I showed here. And here's this graph was containing that information and these two frequencies expressed in terms of angles. And there's more to this graph than I discussed with Robert when we discussed a few days ago. There's, when we assign, and I will get to this in a second here. So there was more information contained in this graph as well. So discover that when we assign this side here on the upper left of this graph with the harmonic 144, which again is the frequency I had been using to broadcast since 2017, the day of my first contact, realized that the area of this triangle was 12.618, as we can see here on the software output, which is very, very close to 12.566, which is the area of the perfect circle, or 4 pi, 99.6% match. And in fact, if we tune this harmonics a little bit to 143.7 instead, we have a perfect match, 12.566. So then I was inspired, and again, since these manifestations, I've had a tremendous amount of inspiration or download, if you will, and I was inspired to translate this area, or this triangle area, into a surface area of a sphere. So I assigned that surface area 12.618 to a sphere, which is essentially which I inscribed into a dodecahedron. And when we do that, the resulting volume of the actual dodecahedron is expressed here in yellow at the bottom, 5.585, happens to match the best estimated volume of our universe expressed in cubic nautical miles, and I will explain why we use the nautical mile in a minute, was matching that at 99.5% of accuracy. And what we see here is a screenshot of Wikipedia that shows the best estimated volume of our universe expressed in cubic meter, which is 3.566 to the power of 80 cubic meter. When we convert that into cubic nautical miles, we get 5.61 to the power of 70. So it was remarkable that this graph seemed to contain the actual volume of our energy of our universe. And I later found out that, there's an article in the reputable journal Nature from 2003 where the scientists, they use a satellite to measure cosmic microwave background radiation, and they mapped out essentially the sky or the universe, and there's a strong case that they made that our universe was actually in a dodecahedron. It was a dodecahedron, which interestingly really matched what Plato was always telling us, that the universe is a dodecahedron. So this information that we see here quantitatively seemed to match that. Then because these harmonics that clearly had been communicated through this craft, the harmonic 144, 432, and the golden ratio, I felt there was more that, I was just drawn to look at many of the things. And I said, there's probably, if one place that this information should be encoded, if it's really that important and significant, should be in the Great Pyramid. So I did a quick analysis of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and once expressed in the meter system or the metric system, we realized that these very same harmonics are present all over the place. I mean, the hypotenuse, which is 186.6 meters, is equivalent to harmonic 432 squared. We look at the base, 230.6 meters, it's equal to harmonic 144 times golden ratio minus golden ratio squared, and 99.9% match. Even the height, 146.6 is equivalent to harmonic 144 plus golden ratio squared, 100% match. Even the number of stones in the pyramid matches 144 times golden ratio at a high degree of accuracy. And when we ratio the hypotenuse over the half base, we get the golden ratio at 99.98% accuracy. Ratio the height over the half base, we get the square root of the golden ratio at 99.95% match. The base over the height, we get pi over 2. And finally, the Great Pyramid angle itself of 51.84 degrees is equivalent to harmonic 432 times the square root of harmonic 144, 100% match. So incredible that all this information is encoded in the very structure of the Great Pyramid. If we look at you see this little picture here, we don't see very well, it's just rather small, but the volume itself expressed again in a cubic meter is equivalent to the golden ratio squared. And it's said in the scripture that the number of casing stones over the pyramid is equivalent to, there were 144,000 casing stones over the pyramid. So again, these same harmonics coming over and over again, which had been expressed through my own, sightings or manifestations for this golden ratio triangular craft. Then I started looking. I mean, I've had a lot of downloads, inspiration, and I woke up a morning with these formulas, and I realized that even if we look at the pi constant here, everything in our holographic universe has a representation of these in terms of these harmonics. If we look at the pi, it can be expressed by the golden ratio square times square root of harmonic 144 at 99.999% accuracy. Number of degrees in a circle has a representation, 432 over square root of 144 gives exactly 360. Right, this is the foundation of geometry, the pi and 360 degrees in a circle, and so on. The Great Pyramid Angle, I mentioned that earlier, is encoded in there. The precession of the equinox, and then further down to my research, I realized that even the golden ratio itself had a representation in terms of these harmonic, and came down really just to a division of the one through the product of this harmonic 144 times harmonic 432, a 99.4% match. And when we use the high accuracy speed of light harmonic, which I'm going to talk about in a second, which is represented by the letter C, or this harmonic 144 is represented by the letter C, we get a match of 99.994%, right? And, fundamentally, since 432 can be expressed by 3 times harmonic 144, and now we realize the golden ratio is can be expressed by this number, really what I understood that the intelligence was communicating through these harmonics, through the Great Pyramid, through my own sightings and everything else that I'd found at the time, converts towards that equation, that the product of these 3 harmonics of creation, as I call them, harmonic 144, 432, and golden ratio, equals to 1, or equals to the singularity we live in, this holographic universe. And we get to 1 very accurately again when we use the high accuracy speed of light harmonic. I have the calculation at the bottom right here. I'm going to get to that calculation in a second. As an additional, more external confirmation outside of my own experience, I was in contact at the time with Sarah Breskman-Cosme. Some of you may know her. She has been on Gaia TV several times. She's a very known QHHT practitioner. And I had exchanged some questions, given some questions about the importance of this harmonic 144 in our universe. And this is the question that she asked to one of her subjects here, asking essentially about this harmonic 144 and the importance in our world. And the answer that came out of this lady, this subject, who had no notion of mathematics or anything like that, the answer said yes, the harmonic 144 and a phi ratio. This is a repeating pattern that is indicative of the holographic nature of our reality. This number is a representation of that, on how all of nature can be broken down into this energy or this number, this ratio. So again, this answer from the subject, we had no notion of mathematics, was very revealing about, again, the importance of these harmonics. And again, Sarah is very known, and she actually is a student of Dolores Cannon, so she has a lot of credibility in the field. And as a final confirmation, again, I just want to share that. I have a good friend. I've been, since 2017, been part of a group who are making contact with non-human intelligences. And Linda is a good friend of mine. She lives in the Netherlands. She's a nurse. She lives in the Netherlands, and she's had many, many contacts since her childhood. And back in 2016, she made a request to her cosmic family, if you will, to produce a sighting in the form of a V shape. So that was her request. And on the given given day, she was instructed to go in the backyard, and she took her night vision camera. And she has the same night vision camera that I have here, actually. And then at the exact and then precise moment, she was instructed to start recording. So I'm going to play the video. And what you will see here is at the moment that she pressed the record button, and you will see the sighting that manifested. And we'll talk about it in a second. So November 2022, Linda, I mean, I had seen that footage before, her incredible footage, which was also part of our documentary a few years ago. She had asked me to look into it. She had seen some interviews I had given on the internet about my work, and she said, can you look into this to see if there's any information that's encoded in this footage? So I took a look at it. So I took some screenshots of when these objects were stable, if you will, that we could get a good screenshot. So I took a screenshot and I started doing the analysis. And we see here the screenshot on the right side. I use an online tool. I could draw a very nice baseline to the bottom here, and draw another line right in the middle of these two objects to have the best average. And to my astonishment, the angle of this object was exactly 144 degrees. I mean, to the dot. Now, the other thing we see in the video is all these craft, they are kind of expanding and then contracting again. So I took a screenshot of both, took measurements of these two states, if you will, the shrunk versus the stretch configuration. And I use PowerPoint, as you can see here, to look at the measurements. PowerPoint gives us measurement of the length. And I was astonished again to realize that when I was ratioing one over the other, we get exactly the golden ratio squared. And finally, one of the other configuration that we could see in that sighting was this formation of these 5 craft, and which seemed to match perfectly to a tetrahedron with an inscribed sphere. And so when we sum up all the angles of the tetrahedron, we end up with 720 degrees. There are 60 minutes of arcs in a degree, so we end up with 43,200, which matches harmonic 432. So again, this incredible sighting seemed to be been encoding again the same information, this harmonic 144 golden ratio and harmonic 432. So this leads us to the second part of this presentation, what I call the birth of geometric harmonics physics, to see how this information, leads us to really a new perspective on physics, which is completely based on geometry, really. And we see that when the dimension of time, and we'll see that in a second, when we convert the dimension of time and distance are converted into units that are compatible with geometry, we really start seeing a new perspective on reality, a new perspective on physics. And actually, this strategy fundamentally was developed by Bruce Cathy, decades ago. We developed technique to use units of distance and time that are compatible with geometry, which again gives us this amazing perspective. And in my work here, I found that these 3 pillars of creation that we see here was really what's at the foundation of the holographic universe we live in. So very simply, it's very simple. If we look at, in terms of the distance, the units of distance we need to use to have this new perspective on physics in reality, there are 360 degrees in a circle, right? And there are 60 minutes of arc per degree. So we end up with 21,600 minutes of arc, right, to do in a circle. Now, fortunately, there's already a measurement system that exists in our measurement system units, the nautical mile system, which is used by NASA, by the way. I don't know if that's coincidental or not, right? We know that there are 360 meridians circling the globe, or circling planet Earth. There are 60 minutes, 60 nautical miles per meridian. So we end up, again, with 21,600 nautical miles to make a circle around the globe. So there's a perfect match between geometry and units of distance. So essentially, 1 nautical mile here, what we're going to see, equals in geometry to 1 minute of arc. So the nautical mile system is really the perfect system to connect the physical distance to geometry. Now, in terms of units of time now, unfortunately, there's no system that exists in our existing system that is compatible of geometry. So we just need to apply a simple conversion factor, right? So if we look at nature, right? If we look at nature, like the sun rotation period, the moon rotation period, the moon revolution period, from the, there are 27 lunar mentioned in the Vedic astrology. That number 27 come back over and over again when it comes to time. Even the human fertility cycle, there are 27 days between cycles. And that's, again, initially, this was developed by Bruce Cathy years ago to use to base our measurement system of time based on the number 27, right? Instead of 24, we know that there are 24 hours a day. And so a simple conversion using this factor, 27 over 24, will give us the conversion factor of time necessary to have a match between geometry and physics. So we end up with these 4 simple rules, which we're going to be using throughout the rest of this presentation. Really, this geometric harmonics physics is based on the very four simple rules that are very simple. And if we use that, we see this very amazing perspective on physics and reality. So again, we talk about rule number one is use the nautical mile system for measurement of distance, which is equal to 1 minute of arc in geometry. So in terms of measurement of time, Broscati had developed 27/24. I had refined that because we knew they were not exactly 24 hours a day, they were 23.93, blah, blah, blah. And later on, I discovered that we get even better results when we use a factor conversion of time using the double square root of the golden ratio, which has something to do with the squaring the circle or circling the square, but I'm not going to get into this today. But essentially, the conversion factor we end up with is written here, 1.12783885. So that's very simple. That's what we're going to use to convert the time factor. And rule number three, I mean, harmonic scalings, we're kind of all familiar to that, right? In harmonic mathematics, the powers of tens are transparent, right? As above, so below. So we can ignore the zero, so we can slide the decimal left or right, if you will. And so we're going to be really focusing on the significant digits only. And finally, and rule number four that I discovered, which is very significant, which gonna, when we talk about black holes and micro singularities, really feeds into that amazingly, is that since we're going to be using units compatible with geometry, so the geometric harmonic volume actually equals to energy. And we know that science or failed science had to make up, what they could not explain with dark matter and dark energy, because we know that what we see as empty space is actually full of energy, right? So they had to make this up. But, in our case, again, this geometric harmonic volume is full of energy. So if we are using geometric harmonic units to represent that volume, it's going to match automatically geometric harmonic energy. And we'll see how we can apply that very specifically to a lot of different things, which is amazing. So based on that, I recalculated the physics constants based on these rules, right? So expressing, we see here the physics constants from the Planck constant to the gravitational constant, the speed of light, the Planck length, the energy, the standard unit, the value in the standard unit in our mainstream science system, right? I converted all these into geometric harmonics values using the nautical mile system and the geometric time based on that conversion factor, double square root of the golden ratio that I explained earlier. And for the rest of the presentation, the way I'm going to represent these harmonics will be the short version, the short form. An example of long form could look like this to the left, right, with a lot of digits and decimals with the units. To keep it very simple, since anyway we can ignore the powers of 10, something that will look like the long form will be expressed in the short form here for simplicity throughout the rest of the slides. So here's an example of calculation to show that. And that we'll see for the rest of the presentation, and that's what's remarkable, is that formula that we saw earlier, like 1 equal the product of 144, 432, and golden ratio. Since the golden ratio can be expressed in terms of harmonic 144, and harmonic 432 is 3 times 144, there's really one common denominator in the holographic universe we live in. This is really this harmonic 144. Here's, for instance, one of the foundation we're going to use is the speed of light harmonic. If we have in the upper left the speed of light harmonic expressed in the metric system in kilometer per second, you're all familiar with that, and to the right in miles per second. Once we convert these units into nautical miles by geometric seconds, we get this high speed of light harmonic here expressed 143.526.74. It's in a vacuum, right? And the pure geometric template of that is harmonic 144. It's going to be expressed with the letter C, right, which is typical for the speed of light, and we're going to use this harmonic 144. So it's quite interesting. Also, I found that the difference between the pure geometric template, harmonic 144, and the speed of light that we get through that calculation, speed of light in a vacuum, is also a function of harmonic 144. Actually, is a function of the reciprocal of harmonic 144 squared. Okay, from there, we'll see how we can recreate or the foundation of our physics, the creation. We'll start with the creation of the quantum space using these simple rules. We'll start with the Planck length. So if we look at the National Institute of Standard of Technology constant, right, which expressed in a metric system. So the Planck length is 1.616255 to the power of negative 35 meter. Once we convert that into nautical miles, I have a screenshot of the converter here. We end up with a Planck length expressed in terms of geometric harmonics, equivalent to 8.72708 nautical miles or minutes of arcs, right? We're talking about this connection between our physics and geometry. And one thing that Robert have mentioned in his talks many times, which is the foundation actually of this presentation, is that everything is based on the division of the one. And I had a download on my balcony actually a few months ago, back in July, August of the last summer. And I realized that if we consider a circle, a very simple circle that has a diameter of 1 equal to the unity, right? And we consider that the circle has 360 degrees, then the question we have to ask ourselves is what will be the length of each degree in order to end up with a circle that has a diameter equal to 1, right? And so by simply dividing pi over 360, we get that answer, in that the length of that length of each degree to have a diameter of 1 is 8.72665. I'm going to do it on the screen here just to show that I'm not making up these numbers. So we take pi, we divide that over 360 degrees, we end up with 8.7266646. So again, if we round it, we 8.72665, which happens to match the length of the Planck length, from theoretical physics, at 99.995% of accuracy, which is stunning. So really, the Planck length seems to be derived naturally from the division of the one, right, through geometry, because we know our universe is completely based on geometry. I found it interesting also, I discovered that when we look at the difference between the theoretical values that we find in our physics, which is here, 8.7270788, this is the nautical mile system, obviously, and we compare that to the pure geometric template that I just described, pi over 360, we get a difference also matching harmonic 432.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Nice.
So that difference, or that accuracy, we say here 99.995, actually may not be an inaccuracy. It's just, I think, that how the way nature operates. And it could be actually that this value we'll get for geometry is more accurate. Because when we look at the NIST website, if we look at the uncertainty, the uncertainty of the Planck length is actually falling pretty much in that range. Now, the next step that I was inspired to do, since we had that foundation of the Planck length, was to create a sphere of energy. If we ask ourselves the smallest pixel of energy or the smallest sphere of energy that could exist at the quantum space, the quantum scale, will have to be based on a sphere that has a diameter equal to the Planck length, right? The Planck length being the smallest oscillation of energy that exists at the quantum space. So when we create that sphere and we calculate the volume energy of that sphere, again, I'm talking volume energy here because a geometric harmonic volume equals energy, right? The space is full of energy, therefore a volume will equal energy. So when we make that calculation, we get with this figure here 348.021, by 10 to the power of negative 117 cubic nautical miles. Again, we'll ignore the exponents here in the units for simplicity. And we have a geometric template representation matching pretty much that, which is represented by 1 over 2 times the speed of light harmonic, 1 over 2c. Again, c represents the speed of light harmonic, 144. When we do 1 over 2c, I'm going to do it on the screen. So 1 over 2 times the speed of light harmonic, which is 288, we get 347.2. That's what's expressed here, right? So with the geometric template matching that is 1 over 2c, which again it comes back to this division of the one through this spark of energy, this fundamental harmonic of light 144, 99.8% match. And once again, once we compare we look at the difference between what we get using quantum physics in our physics books and what we get through the geometric template, the difference is not an accident. It happens to match exactly the Planck energy to the square of the Planck energy, exactly. From there, we're gonna cover now based on that foundation, the creation of the material world, and essentially we'll show that the origin of matter and the origin of the mass of the subatomic particles that makes up our material world are actually a product of that. And it's all connected to geometry. To do that calculation, we're going to be using the general relativity equation. And again, to calculate the mass, all we need is, the energy over the speed of light harmonic squared. And the c squared here is obviously equivalent to harmonic 144 squared. And we saw earlier that the energy we're looking at, or the volume energy, right? The volume created by this Planck sphere, this volume energy of 347.2 is what we're going to feed into this equation. When we do that, and we insert this 347.2 volume energy as the energy into the general relativity equation of Einstein, obviously E over C squared, C being harmonic 144, we get this figure here, 1.6745, which happens to match exactly the average weight or the average mass of the subatomic particles that makes up our material world at 99.99% accuracy. I'm going to do it on the screen here just to show again, I'm not making this up. So we take 347.2. When we divide that by the speed of light harmonic squared, we get 16745, right? If you round it, that's the number expressed here in white. And what we see in yellow is the actual average of the neutron and proton that makes up our material world, 1.6743. There's a 99.99% match. So clearly, very simply, and this thing is really, really simple, really, right? Clearly, it looks like the material world we live in, the mass or the matter making up our material world, is the pure result of geometry and this fundamental harmonic of light 144, from which everything emerges. Everything emerges from the division of the one through that light energy. Now, since we have, as I said, the representation of 347.2, this volume energy can be represented, the harmonic template is 1 over 2c, and we divide by c squared, we can reorganize that equation, simplify it, and we end up with essentially the mass of the subatomic particles are equivalent to 1 over 2c cubed. And I'm going to do it again. It comes back always again to that division of the one for this fundamental harmonic of light 144. So we take 144, we take the cube of it, and we multiply by 2, and we do 1 over x, we get that number, see 1.6745. This is, again, the average mass of the subatomic particle, from which really everything emerges, in our universe, and the periodic table is based on these building blocks, really. It's all coming down from the same formulas. Let's go now. We went from the quantum space, right? We look at the Planck length, the Planck sphere energy, and then we scaled up to the subatomic particles that makes up the material world we live in. And now we're going to go to the universal scale now, see how this applies to the universal scale. Now, if we go back again to the best estimated volume of the universe, which is based on 93 billion light years of a cross-section diameter of our spherical universe, we end up with this volume here. This is a screenshot from Wikipedia. As I said, 3.566 to the power of 80 cubic meter. We convert that into nautical miles, cubic nautical miles to be precise. We end up with this harmonic figure, 561.382. Now, I discovered that amazingly, if we take that Planck sphere volume energy that we talked about earlier, right? That sphere of energy, which is essentially has a diameter equivalent to the Planck length, 347.2, and we scale this up by 1 golden ratio, we get exactly the volume of the universe at 99.92% match with what we get from classical physics.
Beautiful.
So essentially, our universe is really just a quantum fractal. It's just a fractal from the quantum space. I mean, that's the mathematical demonstration of it. Very simple. I mean, this thing is of an extraordinary simplicity. And I think that's what we will expect from creation in general, that things have to be simple, right? If we get bogged down into tens of mathematical formulas and complexities, and something wrong, right? I think, from my perspective, we expect that the universe will be elegant and simple. Remarkably, I found that there was also that the golden ratio triangular craft we talked about earlier was containing this information as well. But if we take this proportion of the golden ratio triangular craft and we set on the upper side here, left side, the side B as being the Planck sphere volume energy, 347.2, naturally through the shape of the triangle, the side C will match the volume of the universe at 99.93% accuracy. And I have the computer output at the bottom right here, just to show that I'm not making up these numbers. And amazingly, as we'll see when we talk about how this all connects to black holes and macro singularities, that the radius of our black hole universe is exactly also 216 or 432 divided by 2. And that golden ratio triangular craft was encoding that information as well. So let me give you a few examples of, we've talked about all this stuff, how this applies to everything around us. And so when I started looking at everything, as I'm a chemist, so I looked at it from chemistry standpoints, physics standpoints, I realized that everything was tuned to that. Everything was tuned to these building blocks of creation. If you look at the neutron radius, the radius of a neutron, subatomic particles, for instance, bottom right, you will find on Wikipedia, on the internet, that the radius is equivalent to 8 femtometer or 0.8 to the power of negative 15 meter. We convert that into the nautical mile system, again, which is matching minutes of arc or geometry. We get 431.97, and it's extreme accuracy. I mean, 99.99%. Now, this all connects to Egypt. All this stuff I've been talking about is 100% encoded in Egypt, in the Great Pyramid, and so on. If we look at the Royal Egyptian cubit here, if we express the Royal Egyptian cubit, the length in terms of nautical miles, right, or minutes of arc in terms of geometry, we have to the bottom left here, we see the conversion from the metric system to the nautical miles. We get a harmonic figure of 2.8272. And 2.8272 just happens to match 2 times the Planck length times 1 golden ratio at 99.9% match. So the Royal Egyptian cubit clearly is based on quantum physics. It's based on all the stuff we've been talking about. It's a measurement, it's a quantum measurement system. And that matches also, actually, that length matches the side length of a tetrahedron within a Euclidean cube of coordinate plus minus 1. Again, it's all about the division of the 1. So if we take a cube with coordinate of x, y, z plus minus 1, and we calculate the length here of this segment of this tetrahedron, which is tetrahedron, again, being the simplest 3-dimensional structure that exists in the universe, because creations always operate through simplicity, the most simple, basic, geometric principle. This side length is equal to the square root of 8, and the square root of 8 is equal to 2.8285, which matches, again, the Royal Egyptian cubit at 99.96%. So let me just show it on the screen. So we take 8, we do the square root, we get 2.8284. This is exactly what I show it here, again, which matches the Royal Egyptian cubit. This is all coming from quantum physics. These harmonics are encoded in the, in the King's chamber. If we just look at even the speed of sound in granite material, I'm a chemist, so this is a lot of stuff I love to look into. The speed of sound in granite material is 5,950 meters per second. We convert that into nautical miles per geometric second, right? These are geometric harmonic units we've been talking about. We get something that's equivalent to about 2.88 or 2 times harmonic 144, 99% match. So when some says that they have amazing experience and the sound or the resonance of the sound in the King's chamber is like godly or heavenly, right? There's clearly a connection to this fundamental harmonic of light 144 here. I mean, it's mathematical. Being a chemist also here, I looked at the molecule that makes up the blocks of the Great Pyramid of Giza and the casing stones. We know that the limestones, these blocks are made of limestones. And if we look at the molecular weight and we convert that molecular weight into gram per molecule, so if we take 1 molecule of this limestone of calcium carbonate and we convert that mass into energy, using, again, the very simple E equal mc squared, C being equivalent to harmonic 144 again, right? So we do this calculation, we get this number here, 347.6, which matches, again, this Planck sphere energy very closely, right? This 1/2C, 347.2, which is the energy of the subatomic particles that makes up our material world. It's all connected to this fundamental harmonic of light 144. Other example, we look at the Schumann resonance, right? We know the Schumann resonance is 7.83 hertz. When we convert that into a geometric harmonic figure, we get 6.94, which again is equivalent to the reciprocal of harmonic 144 at 99.97% accuracy. And let me do it on the screen here, right? With the 7.83 hertz. Now we convert a time, right? A frequency is a reciprocal of a second. So we divide by this factor, the double square root of the golden ratio that I talked about earlier, which is equivalent to 1.1278385. We get this figure 6.84, right? This is I have on a slide here. We do 1 over x, get harmonic 144.0 exactly. So even the heartbeat of planet Earth itself, that Schumann resonance, is absolutely in tune with this reciprocal of this fundamental harmonic of light 144 again, which is again the symbol common denominator that drives everything in our universe. This connects to our brainwave as well. We know that between the alpha and the theta state, between 7 and 8 hertz, which is known to be a state where people like Tesla and others have had tremendous moment of inspiration. Corresponds to that frequency as well. And we know that the Monroe Institute, for instance, for those who are familiar with the Monroe Institute, they actually induce this frequency, right, using the frequency they put it in the left here and right here. I'm losing the word here, but right, so they induce these two frequency, and with the difference of this frequency, they get this heartbeat, or they are able to generate this Schumann resonance frequency, 7.83 hertz, again, which matches that, which is known to induce out-of-body experiences. I looked at the velocity of galaxies and star clusters, and amazingly, I found that everything was tuned to these harmonics. We take the Milky Way. Speed of the Milky Way is 600 meters per second. We convert that into nautical miles per geometric second, or minutes of arc per geometric second. We get a velocity of our own galaxy equivalent to 287.3, which matches again this harmonic 144. 2 times harmonic 144 matches that at 99.8%. The Andromeda galaxy is exactly tuned to harmonic 144.1, I mean to the dot. Even the Pleiades cluster, 2.873. Again, very nice match with 2 times this harmonic 144. We look at the water molecule, the mass energy of the water molecule. We know that our own body, we're made of 65% water. Our brain is made of 85% water. I mean, that's the foundation of life. And if we take the mass of one molecule of water, which I calculated, again, being a chemist, it was easy for me to do that. And we transform that mass into energy using E equal mc squared. We get an energy equivalent, a harmonic energy equivalent of 0.620, which matches the reciprocal of the golden ratio, 1 over the golden ratio at 99.6% match. I mean, the match is extraordinary. Again, coming down again to the 3 building blocks of creation, harmonic 432, 144, and golden ratio. Another example, mass energy of our own galaxy, the Milky Way. Well, when we convert, we know that our Milky Way is estimated to be equivalent to 1.5 trillion solar mass. Solar mass is 1.998 by 10 to the power of 30 kilograms. And we convert that mass for galaxy into energy. And once again, we get this figure 0.6185, which matches again 1 over golden ratio at 99.93% match. So even the overall mass energy of our Milky Way galaxy is based on this 1 over golden ratio. And this is what I call the primordial fractalization, by the way. I do have an entire PowerPoint presentation about this. We won't have time to cover this today, but this primordial fractalization, which is the division of the one through the simplest or the most efficient principle of division, which is the golden ratio, is at the foundation of so many things around us, from our galaxy, again, the water molecule, right, which is the foundation of life. And we see again that this figure is everywhere. I mean, the flower of life, and this is credit to Jane 108. If you count the number of petals in the flower of life, number of these inverted triangle, there's 90 petals plus 54 triangles, we get harmonic 144 again. 64 tetrahedron grid, very popularized by Nassim Haramein, which I have great admiration for. There are 144 open phases in this 64 tetrahedron shape. Now, gravity, here's one that really stunned me pretty bad. We looked at even though gravity has a connection to this, right? If we take the Earth gravity acceleration at the equator, which is 9.78 meter per square second, right? And we convert that into geometric harmonic, again, geometric based on nautical miles per geometric second, we get this harmonic figure here, 41514.9. Now, if we take this gravity acceleration and we ratio that over the mass of planet Earth itself, which is 5.97 to the power of 24 kilograms, we get this figure here, 695.13. Let me do it on the screen again. I just like to give this example to show I'm not inventing these things here. So 145.14.9, and we ratio that over the planet Earth, the mass of planet Earth, 219. We get this figure of 695.13. This is what we get here. And when we do 1 over x of that, we get again this harmonic 144. Very close to it, 143.85. So even the gravity density that we experience on planet Earth is based on that. And again, I found out that the difference between the pure geometric template, harmonic 144, and that figure we see here, if we take 144 and we subtract 143.856, let me show this to you, and this is quite stunning. 144, and we subtract the difference of that figure we're getting, we get, again, a function of harmonic 144. So even a difference, again, a difference of harmonic 144, it looks like nature operates with these increments of the harmonics. And I'm getting close here to getting finally to the last section, which is about black holes and how it connects to black hole. But if we go in Wikipedia and you look at the best estimated mass of the observable universe, which is estimated to be 1.5 to the power of 53 kilograms, and we convert that mass of the observable universe into energy times harmonic 144 squared, right, equal mc squared, we get this figure, which matches 1 over 2 times the golden ratio at 99.4% match. So even the mass of the observable universe is a geometric function of the division of the 1 over 2 times the golden ratio. And if we use the high accuracy speed of light harmonic I talked about earlier, the match is 100%. 1 over 2 times the golden ratio is the mass of the observable universe we live in. So all these formulas we looked at that were, derived from the non-human intelligence, the information, clearly they've been communicated through ancient sacred sites, the Great Pyramid of Giza, my own contact experience of others through QHHT sessions, comes down to these very simple formulas that are all based on geometry, and that are all based on the division of the 1. And we see here, to summarize, this is the formula that expresses the golden ratio principle to the left. This 1 over 2c, if you recall, was the volume of the Planck sphere, right? The creation of the Planck space or the quantum space, which once we insert into the general relativity equation, we convert that volume energy of the quantum space into mass of material. It's 1 over 2c cubed. We get the mass of the subatomic particles that makes up our material world. And to the mass of the observable universe, like I just demonstrated, that the observable universe, the mass is 1 over 2 times the golden ratio. It's all based on the division of the 1, and the gravity on planet Earth, the gravity density on planet Earth is 1 over c, or 1 over the harmonic 144, again, very accurately. These are additional formulas. There's another version that I had a bit more where I express the energy density of the universe and so on. I'm not going to go through all that right now. We don't have time, but this is essentially just more information. We looked at the Planck length earlier, right? So they all have a very simple representation. Everything's extremely simple, and really creation really operates through the division of the 1 through the simplest geometric structure that exists in the universe, and the most efficient principle of division, which is the golden ratio. Now, how does this connect to black hole and singularities? And this is the last portion, and then I'm going to be done. So this totally connects to this, right? So we're all familiar with the Schwarzschild metric, right? Which is the formula used to calculate the radius of black holes based on the mass of that said black hole. So I reorganized this equation, the Schwarzschild metric equation, which is here on the upper right, and to make it more applicable to this geometric harmonics physics we've been talking about, I combined these two equations, the Schwarzschild metric and the general relativity equation of Einstein equal mc squared. I combined them into one equation. So, and instead of calculating the radius of a black hole, we're going to be calculating the diameter of black hole. You know, just 2 times the radius, obviously. It's just more practical. You will see why in a second. And also that what this equation allows us to do is to feed into that equation energy as opposed to the mass. We're going to calculate the diameter of these micro singularities or black hole based on the volume, based on geometric harmonic volume energy as opposed to the mass. So here's an application. We saw a few minutes ago that the volume of our universe based on mainstream science, right? They're 3.566 to the power of 80 cubic meter. When we convert that into a geometric harmonic unit that is a cubic nautical miles, we get a volume energy equivalent to 561.4. And when we feed that volume energy into the modified Schwarzschild metric at the bottom left here, and I'm going to do it on the screen, show that I'm not just making this up. So we take 4 times the G is equivalent to the gravitational constant. So this is 8.725739925. And we divide that, or we multiply that by the energy, which is 561.4, right? This is the volume energy of our observable universe. And then we divide that by harmonic 144 to the power of 4. We end up with a volume or a diameter in terms of black hole universe equivalent to 431.2. And that is the figure I'm showing here. 431.2 is the diameter of that black hole universe we will be living in. So amazingly, I fell under out of my chair when I saw that if we think that our black hole is our universe is actually a black hole, that black hole diameter will be equivalent to harmonic 432 at a very high degree of accuracy. I mean, it's just stunning. And it's all based on geometry. All this is based on geometry. The other thing I was inspired to do is so we talked about earlier, I showed a slide that the diameter of a neutron is equivalent to this harmonic 432 times 2. Right, this is physics, and when we calculate the diameter of a neutron in terms of black hole, we get to this figure here, 432 over 1 golden ratio. Right, so if we ratio the actual diameter of a neutron, as we can see, like in our physics, over what that diameter is in terms of black hole or micro black hole, if you will, we get a ratio that matches 1 over 2 times the golden ratio. And 1 over 2 times the golden ratio just happens to be what we saw earlier, happens to match exactly the energy of the observable universe we live in, the mass energy of the observable universe we live in. I mean, the match is just stunning. And I mean, that matches also with the great work that Nassim Haramein had been talking about, that the proton, really Nassim focused on the proton, that proton were mini black holes, right? This is a different representation of that, if you will. But from a geometric standpoint, right, we're looking at an entirely new perspective on physics here. It's purely based on geometry, and the math works really well. And what it tells us, I put this little iceberg to the right side, that essentially what we're seeing here, what we could see that the material world we live in is just the tip of the iceberg, right? What we see in our physical world or we have access to is just the tip of the iceberg. And what's underneath it is this the singularity, right? This infinite potential that we were immersed into. And that ratio of this tip of the iceberg over everything else, this infinite potential, is 1 over 2 times the golden ratio. Now, here's another application of that in terms of black hole or micro singularity. Now, the other thing I was drawn is, again, to go back to Egypt and look, okay, what's the connection to the Great Pyramid of Giza? So I modeled in a little software here the dimensions of the Great Pyramid of Giza based, again, on the nautical mile system, right, which is based on geometry. And the volume or the volume energy of the Great Pyramid of Giza is equivalent to 408.801. That is the harmonic or volume energy we get out of the Great Pyramid of Giza. And when we feed that, let me do it again on the screen, into this modified equation that they came up with to calculate the diameter of the macro singularity or macro black hole we will get out of this energy. So we take 4 times the gravitational constant, which is at the bottom of the screen here, which is 8.25732295, times the volume energy of the Great Pyramid of Giza, which is 408.801. And we divide that by the speed of light harmonic to the power of 4 divided by 144 to the power of 4. We get a figure of 3.1402. This is what we're seeing in yellow on the screen, 3.1402. And that figure, amazingly, and I was stunned by it, just happens to match the mathematical constant pi at 99.96% accuracy. And the mathematical constant pi, as we know, is the symbol for portals. I mean, around the world, this has been encoded in so many ancient structures, from the Torii Gates in Japan, in Maui, Tonga, in Malta, through the Chichen Itza in Mexico, Stonehenge, I mean, the Trilaton of the Temple of Apollo. This has been right in your face, you know, through the encoded in these ancient sacred sites. But not only it's a symbol, now we realize that actually this is mathematical. This is mathematical. Just add a few more slides here, I'm going to be done. So when we apply this calculation or these principles to the rest of the Great Pyramid of Giza and to our own sun, which is theorized to be a portal itself, I was absolutely stunned to see that the sun, if we take the mass energy of our sun, right, which is 1.98845 to the power of 30 kilograms, we convert that into harmonic energy the same way we did before. We get an energy we see at the bottom here of 412.329, which matches very nicely the volume energy of the Great Pyramid of Giza, 408.801, we just saw in that, right, in that picture, in that slide here. And the portal size of the sun itself is equivalent also very close to pi, 3.1673, which also happens to be very, very close to the square root of 10, right? And the square root of 10 is very unique, as you know, because that's one of the only figure where when you do the reciprocal of that figure, you get the same harmonic, you get the same number. And I realized that the Menkaure pyramid also had the same volume energy, 406.173, very close to pi, very high percent match, which all these clearly indicates that the pyramid themselves, by their volume energy and the sun mass energy, are all connected through the singularity, right? They're all in harmonic resonance. They have the same number, or very close match. And actually, I realized, before going to the next slide, if we look at Khafre pyramid also, right? We talk about now the Great Pyramid and Menkaure, right? And interestingly, we'll see that the difference of energy between these entities is no accident, or is not because of inaccuracy, but it's perfectly tuned to these figures again, because the difference between the Great Pyramid and the Menkaure pyramid is exactly close to the golden ratio squared. The Khafre pyramid had a micro singularity equivalent to 432 over 1 golden ratio, which matches a volume energy of 349.7. And that figure just happens to match the volume energy of the subatomic particles we've seen earlier, right? 347.2, which is the volume energy of the Planck sphere, which makes up our material world, the material world we live in. And when we look again at the difference between this volume energy of the pyramid, there are no accident. Let me give you an example. If we take, for instance, here the volume energy of the Great Pyramid plus the volume energy of the Menkaure pyramid, and we ratio that over the volume energy of the Khafre pyramid, we get exactly harmonic 144 times 1 golden ratio. If we take the volume energy of the Great Pyramid plus the Khafre pyramid ratioed over the the Menkaure, we get harmonic 432 squared. And we take the Great Pyramid minus Menkaure pyramid, we get golden ratio squared. All these figures have an accuracy of, or this ratio of 99.4% or above. And it's all connected to the sun, the macro singularity in the sun as well. If we take the sun volume energy, D, represented by letter D, minus the volume energy of the Khafre pyramid, we get a result equivalent to the product of harmonic 144 times 432. The sun minus the Great Pyramid, we get 1/2 times Planck length to the by this the product of the golden ratio. And finally, the sun minus the Mankari pyramid, we get the primordial fractalization 1/5, right, which matches the volume energy of our own galaxy, the volume energy of water, right, which makes up life on Earth and makes up most of our body. So clearly, all this volume energy and this mathematics seems to be perfectly calibrated. It's some kind of technology. I mean, I don't understand all this. Obviously, I'm just showing you what came out of my research, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done and to understand, right, what's behind all this. And a couple of more slides here. A good friend, Matthias de Stefano, in one of his teaching mentioned that the Great Pyramid of Giza was surrounded by a sphere of energy. And I woke up one morning and I did this calculation. I said, okay, let's use the height of the original Great Pyramid, not the Great Pyramid as it is today, but the original pyramid before it was, this casing stones were taken away and so on, and calculate the volume energy, again, using the very same principle we've been talking about. Amazingly, the volume energy of that sphere of energy surrounding the Great Pyramid will be matching the C-square or this relationship between energy of matter, from the general relativity equation at 99.99% match. And I recently found out that when we ratio that volume energy of that sphere over the actual volume energy of the Great Pyramid of Giza, we have the calculation at the bottom here, we get the figure of 50.72, which happens to match the volume energy of the King's Chamber,
Wow.
which is known to be a portal, right? A wormhole. Many people have had extraordinary experience, for the King's Chamber. So there seems to be clearly a mathematical relationship based on micro singularities or black holes, if you will. These volume energy are perfect, and that tells us also that maybe why the Great Pyramid of Giza used to be more perfect, right? When we had the height that we're talking about, that the height was yielding a volume energy equivalent to the C-squared. Maybe that portal was more active or more present because, it was yielding the perfect energy in order to create these macro singularities or black holes, if you will. Now it's been altered, right? They took the casing stones away, and so we may have the Great Pyramid may be less effective or maybe different today than it was before. Finally, and this is the last slide, all this connects to our DNA. The Dr. White, Mark White, in 2007, released a paper showing that the DNA molecule, if we take a double-stranded DNA base pair molecule, could be represented by a stacked dodecahedron that were rotating along the axial of the molecule, or also could be represented by a cube that's also spiraling around, the axis of the or DNA molecule. Now, being a chemist, I could easily calculate the mass energy of a double-stranded DNA base pair molecule, right? Using an average gram per molecule, convert that into energy using equal mc squared, we get a mass energy equivalent to 22.73. And I recently discovered that, amazingly, if we take, I will start to the right side here, well, the energy of the volume energy of our own sun, if we convert the volume energy into this harmonic energy, we get a figure of 22.62, which matches really nicely the mass energy of our DNA molecule. And as the Dr. White mentioned in his paper, that the volume energy of the DNA molecule was equivalent to a rotating dodecahedron. I found that amazingly, when we set the side length of this dodecahedron with harmonic 144, we got a volume energy of 22.88, which is exactly very nicely in harmonic resonance with our DNA molecule. And the other representation in that paper for Dr. White he talked about was a rotating cube. I found that amazingly, when we set the side length of that cube as being equivalent to the Royal Egyptian cubit, which is equivalent to two Planck lengths times 1 golden ratio, we get an volume energy of 22.6. So all these are all in perfect harmonic resonance. And when we feed that volume energy into the Schwarzschild metric or the modified Schwarzschild equation that I put together, and we feed that average energy of 22.72. This is the average of all these numbers. We get a micro black hole or macro singularity diameter equivalent to 17.8045, and 17.45 happens to be exactly equivalent to two times the Planck length. So I think this is really our connection to source, or connection to the singularity, that makes up everything is through this mathematics we see here, and there's connection to our own sun. Right, and the geometry of it fits perfectly in terms of this volume energy, and the mass energy of the double-stranded DNA base pair molecule matches that exactly. And Nassim Haramein, actually, there was a post I saw not long ago that he was showing that when we feed the Planck mass into the Schwarzschild metric, we get a radius, or black hole radius of exactly 2 times the Planck length, which match exactly the singularity we're talking about here. And this is the last slide. This is connected to the primordial fractalization, and we don't have time to cover this because that would take too long. This is the last slide. And we see here, the bottom left here, that really, in terms of geometric principle, everything emerges from the division of the one through the simplest geometric structure, which is the tetrahedron, and the most efficient principle of division, which is the golden ratio. And when we take that 1/5, which is equivalent to 0.618, and we feed that volume energy into a tetrahedron with an inscribed sphere, naturally what emerges from that, the inscribed sphere will have a volume equivalent to 186.8, or harmonic 432 squared, and the residual volume energy outside that sphere will be equivalent to harmonic 432. It's amazing. And the side length of that tetrahedron will be equivalent to 2 times the Planck length, which is exactly what we've been talking about through our DNA molecule, through the Schwarzschild metric. And this is, believe it or not, encoded in the Great Pyramid location as well, because when we calculate the distance between the longitudinal distance between the prime meridian and the longitude of the Great Pyramid of Giza, which is at 31.1342 degrees east, the distance, which I have in a small calculator here, is exactly 1,868 nautical miles. And you can go check yourself. I mean, this is to the dot. That figure, 186.8, matches exactly the volume energy of that inscribed sphere inside the tetrahedron. And I'm going to end it there, but this connects to the creation of the material world, because once we feed these harmonics converted into mass and so on, we ended up with the mass of the subatomic particles that makes up our material world. And I've been broadcasting with my radio station, to get back to this, broadcasting these formulas and slides with my radio stations, and I did it on December 16, 2023, which is only like 4 months ago. And during that broadcast, which lasted 25 minutes, there were 16 UAP manifestations. I have the video with it. I will share the link with you all, and you can go watch the video. But you will see that these flashes occurring, again, right in front of the antenna array while this broadcast was happening. So which to me was the kind of validation and confirmation that this information was important, and the non-human intelligence were acknowledging that. So that's the end of my presentation.
Whoa, Jimmy, that's amazing, man. That was such a good presentation. Wow.